central idea of the novel is the omnipresence of change, which is a very Buddhist concept, the idea that of impermanence and the way everything changes and changes in our lives, and how we struggle to make the impermanent permanent, and try to cling on to things that we can't cling on to. And it's in Buddhism, it's one of the third, it's a third poison, which is a delusion or moha. And moha is this idea that people are deluded into thinking that the impermanent is permanent. So I mean, Yasodhara really struggles with this in her life. And so and hence the central metaphor, visual metaphor in the novel is the river, uh, and the current of the river, which she feels carried along. Um, and so yes, that would be the central sort of theme, if you want, of the novel: the struggle to come to terms with the fact that life changes and changes and changes, and not just Yasodhara has to struggle with it, but Siddhartha himself has to struggle with trying to understand how one might live in in the middle of this change. I mean, I suppose one of the things that anybody would know is that Siddhartha becomes the Buddha, and that he leaves his wife. I mean, that's like a sort of, that's basic fact. So I thought I would start with that, with actually his return. So the prologue or the opening section is about his return after 10 years, or he's not come home, but he's gone to the great city of Magadha, which would have been the New York of its time, and converted Bimsara, who would have been the American president of his time. So and so they hear about this, and so she's shocked and devastated because she thought he had died, because he's been gone 10 years. And the ascetic schools at that time, the way you achieved freedom was to starve yourself to death. But obviously he has gone and made up this new, not made up, he's discovered this new philosophy that does not require that. So I'd start there, and then I go back in time. And so the novel has a kind of dramatic irony, which also for me felt very Buddhist, because the Buddhist stories often start in the present and then look back to the past lives. So you're reading about the characters from this vantage point of understanding what's happened to them. And then I think it was really important for me that the characters be very much in love with each other. And to me, it seems obvious that Siddhartha, this man who discovered this philosophy in which compassion is such a fundamental part of it, and humility, would himself be compassionate and humble, but also extraordinarily gifted in terms of intellect, because many of the things that the Buddha discovered, all those, but in 600 BC, we only now understanding in brain science in the last century, or the last 50 years. So I had to make him like that, and it only made sense to me that he would be like that. So then he became this very attractive character to her, and he was attractive to us, and they were deeply in love with each other. And yet that then becomes the narrative tension of the novel. You as a reader know what happens way ahead of Yasodhara, and so now you must witness this, and witness how his calling in the end makes the life of the householder not possible, and that he must take up the homeless life. No, you absolutely do not. You can read it without any understanding of Buddhism. Because the characters themselves don't know what Buddhism is, for the most part, for the most of the novel, and it is Siddhartha's discovery of it that happens later on in the novel, and then from then on, in his in the kind of explanation of it that he gives in his sermons, or that other people explain it to Yasodhara, then you will yourself come to understand Buddhism and its concepts as they existed in that time, because there are various kinds of Buddhisms in the world, and this is the original Theravada Buddhism. But there are other kinds as well, like the Zen Buddhism or the Buddhism of Tibet, and also Western Buddhism, and they're all equally valid. But this is the sort of the first, the original one.